Hello and welcome back to Welsh Gardener, and today some clips are going to be filmed on my phone and some on my camera because I filmed some clips on my camera and then I managed to damage it, unfortunately, so I'm waiting for that to be fixed. So for the meantime my videos will be filmed on my phone like this. So today's video is all about jobs for August and gardening jobs for August. So I've been doing this for the last few months at the start of each month. This was meant to come out last Saturday, but because of my camera being damaged I couldn't upload last Saturday, so apologies for that. But today I'm going to talk to you about the main jobs, and August is a very abundant month in terms of harvest, so there's a lot of harvesting to be done. There's also a lot of just general little bits of maintenance to do with the plants to keep them going so that you can get the biggest harvest you possibly can. So please enjoy the video and I'll let the video play on now. So before this video gets started, please go down below and hit the subscribe button as well as the little bell icon to make sure you're notified next time I upload a video. In August, as with July, weeding shouldn't really be that much of a big problem because most of the plants that you're growing have actually got big leaves on them now, so they should be smothering out most of the weeds that try and grow. But there will be the odd few weeds that will come through as will be expected, so just make sure you go through with a hoe or put some gloves on and just pluck out any ones that you see, but it shouldn't be a huge problem. This isn't going to be what's taking up most of your time in August. And something that I use for weeding is, well, gloves. I go and rip things out, but then I also use a hoe. I've got a Dutch hoe, and on a hot, sunny, dry day I go and I just go between the rows and I push all the weeds out, and what happens, because it's a dry, hot, sunny day, these weeds will wilt and they won't is a bit of a thing to say, but they shouldn't reroot, and what they should do is they should just wilt and then rot on the surface, which means that you won't have a problem with weeds or that weed anymore, because they'll die and then they'll feed back into the soil. So whereas if you do some hoeing on a wet day or where the soil is damp, what this will mean is that the weeds have more potential to root because there's always water there, and they'll just root, whereas if it's hot they'll wilt and then they'll rot down into the soil. And the next job is actually to mulch with compost, so between plantings. And I don't mean between rows. What I mean is if you finish a crop in August, so rip it out of the ground once you finish harvesting it, what I mean is to mulch with compost, put a thick layer of mulch with compost between pulling that thing out and planting the next thing. So for example, if you're pulling out some bolted lettuce and then you're putting in maybe some beetroots, what I would do is I'd put some homemade compost or well-rotted manure down just to feed the soil between these plantings, so that the soil doesn't get overwhelmed or it doesn't get too sort of overused of all of its nutrients, so that it's constantly being fed with fresh organic matter ready for the next crop, so that you get a next harvest that is bigger than the one before or just as good. And so the next one is to sow salads ready for winter. So here I've got some cut and come again lettuce that I sowed in July actually, but in August you can sow some salads, especially things like winter imperial lettuce or autumn king carrots, and you plant all these ready for winter and autumn so that you have a prolonged harvest season. And what you can also do is grow salads under cloche, so if you grow Swiss chard and things like that, and you can have them under a cloche or under a mini polytunnel over winter, so that then you have a crop all whenever you want, so that you've always got homegrown food available to you. And this winter I'm planning on using my greenhouse to grow more things over winter, because it's more of a big cold frame really, and I'm going to be growing more stuff over winter in it, maybe even some peas, beans, just trying different things to try and experiment with growing food under a cover like this. And one of my videos soon to come is actually going to be about my upcycled greenhouse that only cost me £20, because a lot of people have been requesting that, and I think it'd be really interesting. And I protected it with some linseed oil yesterday, so I was going to say if you can smell anything, but you won't be able to smell it because it's a video, but I can smell linseed oil at the moment because I oiled it yesterday, which might be why it looks a bit darker than it does in other videos. And the job for the flower garden is to keep deadheading your flowers, such as dahlias that I've got here. And another thing with dahlias as well is to pinch out side shoots for bigger flowers. So if you want bigger blooms, just like I've got on here, then you pinch out the side shoots as they're growing, and this is also great for if you want to use them for cut flowers. So they get longer stalks then, bigger flowers, so you can cut them lower down and you get a really good harvest of cut flowers. And so I'm going to deadhead here. I haven't got any secateurs on me at the moment, so I'm just going to try and do it by hand. I'll just pick it off like that, just before the leaf nodes, which means it sends out 2 new flowers then, so that you've got continuous flowers coming through the season. And I'm just checking here for any more side shoots, and I just pluck these out, and it means it puts all the energy that the plant has into the flowers. There, that's what I've done there. And another one for the flower garden is, as you can see my lupins here, they've just about finished flowering. There's a few little flowers coming on them, but if you want to save seeds, or if you've left the seed heads to save seeds, then now is the time when they're starting to dry out. So when they're a grey colour, blacky grey colour, then you can pick them off the plant and then you split them open, and I leave the seeds out on an old baking tray just for maybe a day in a room temperature, and then it'll sort of dry them off a bit from any residue moisture that they've got on them. Then you store it in a paper envelope or a special designated seed pack. And as you can see here, if you let your forget-me-nots go to seed and they've self-seeded all in your flower beds, then you can move them, you can prick them out into a seed tray or a module tray, ready to plant wherever you exactly want them. And I've already got 55, and I want to try and do some more here because I'm going to try and sell these plants as well. And that brings me on to my next point, which is any plants or young seedlings that you've planted, make sure you get them planted out as soon as they're ready this month, so that they've got enough time in the summer to establish their root system and establish their plants, so that they can go on producing flowers or vegetables all into winter with a good strong plant that they've established in the summer. And the job in the vegetable patch at the moment is to keep pinching out the tops on your runner beans, which means they produce more flowers and in turn more beans. Pinch out the top of your beans when they reach the top of the structure. So just like here, I'll pinch that out, and that one, and I just chuck them on the floor, they'll rot down, and these will then produce more flowers, as you can see, and more beans, which gives you more harvest. You can also do this with peas and things like that, but my peas, I forgot, well, I started to pinch them out and they've all snapped over in the wind, which shows you exactly why you should start pinching out. So this one as well, and this just keeps the plants energised in the lower half, not trying to constantly grow taller, so that you've got as much harvest from a lower structure as you possibly can, rather than trying to get them as tall as you can with less fruit. If needed, you can stake up and cane up your broad beans if they've all flopped over in the wind, or if you think they're going to. But mine seem okay because I've been pinching these out as well. So once they start flowering, you pinch the tops out and it stops them growing any taller, produces more flowers and beans, and they're less likely to fall over, so they're shorter, and then they've got stronger roots and stems as well. And doing this will give your plant more energy to produce beans, just like runner beans. It will give them more energy to produce beans, rather than trying to put all of their energy in sort of water and stuff and all their resources into growing tall. They'll put it all into making beans for you. So another job for this month is to water when things are needing water. So when it's been dry, it's not really dry at the moment, it's very windy and wet at the moment here, but you can use a watering can, just like this, to give things a good soaking of water. But I wouldn't water every day because this makes the plants a bit sort of dependent on you. If you leave them maybe 2 or 3 days between waterings when it's really hot, then this will let some of them will wilt. But if they're wilting, give them a little bit of water, but to put them under a bit of stress, because this makes them make deeper roots, and that means stronger, healthier plants. And this is also good for the soil, because if you're no dig like me, then the roots will go down and they'll help break down the soil a bit, and they'll help they'll help with drainage, and it just, roots going into no dig soil and firm soil is very, very good for the soil, because it breaks up the soil and helps with drainage, and generally just helps with the soil life. And something else is to keep harvesting when things are ready. So for example, over here my runner beans, which I showed you pinching out the tops earlier in the video. I'm about to harvest my first one of them, and probably in 2 or 3 days it'll be ready. And they're getting quite big now actually, so I'll be harvesting that very soon. And that's quite exciting because I love homegrown runner beans, and we get quite a lot of them actually. It's quite good. Our soil here must be quite good for runner beans, and they're quite abundant anyway. And the soil here as well, this year, is the best the soil's ever been in, as far as I can remember, ever since I went no dig. And the soil is just, it's so dark and rich looking. It's quite amazing how what 1 year of not digging the soil can do, because I think this area got about 2 to maybe 3 or 4 inches of really good compost in early spring. So that's why all of my plants down here are doing so well. Thank you so much for watching this video all the way through. If you did enjoy, please hit that like button as well as the subscribe button to show your support to my channel. Thank you for watching the video. I'll see you next time.